Hello everyone, it's me again, it's Uncle Badger. I hope you're all well, or if you're not, I hope you get better soon. This is going to be sort of I sort of did like a vlog sort of video. This is still quite a while ago. I think it was very early May, very late April perhaps, and yeah, I wasn't very happy at that time, and it's now middle of November. Yeah, it was trying to figure things out a little bit. I thought I might talk a little bit more about that sort of stuff. Just briefly, I'm sort of ad-libbing it at the moment, but things have generally been feeling a bit better. There might be a touch of this that I might touch upon in a video coming soon, where I'm planning on doing a video where I show my altars and talk a bit about the Fae, but they had I'd really got into doing stuff with themselves or trying to develop a relationship with themselves. The little people from under the mound. Yes, sir. They are something that they are a people that absolutely fascinate me. I do realise they're not all they're not all Tinkerbell. Yes, I do realise that, but it was shortly after I did that last video about the beginning of May that, I don't know, I'd reorganised my altar. I'd made a separate altar, and it felt like the Fae their presence had waned, sort of drifted off, tapered away, sort of thing. Their presence had become less and less quite quickly, and I'm not really too sure why. I'll probably mention this again in the next in the specific video coming soon. But yeah. But I was wondering if it was something to do with the reorganisation of the altar. They might have got used to the previous setup, and I was changing things, and I was making something with the intention of it starting off very basic and building up, and they perhaps weren't happy with that. So it's a bit sort of weird in that regard. It seems to have had the adverse effect of I make a specific place for them, they're not happy about it, so they've sort of wandered off. Yeah, as people who are, if a person is unimpressed by something, they just go, tired of this, no thanks, and wander off. I wondered if that was the case. I'm not too certain though, because it's more specifically with them. It was a period a couple of months ago, roughly. I can't remember properly off the top of my head. It was roughly 2 months ago. Yeah. Someone tried to curse me for no particular reason. Don't really want to go into it. It's all done and dusted. But one of the curious things was I had a few dreams. And the latter of those dreams, the last half was very, very, very reassuring. And I was walking through the countryside. It was more sort of laid out, and there were these sort of paths. It was the formalised sort of this sandy gravel, as if it's sort of like a sandstone and sand pathways, as if it was through a nature reserve or something. and but it was still the countryside, all trees and everything around you. And it was getting towards dawn, and there were these people, and they were wearing boots and sturdy outdoor jackets for walking around first thing in the morning, probably a hat or whatever. And there was people, I kept passing them, and they were commenting on something that had happened previous in the dream. And they were sort of saying, oh, the person these signs are for, oh, they must really be cared for. The signs were meant for me. This person must be really cared for. You know, their friends and relatives have really put in a lot of effort to make these signs. And that was very reassuring, and it got on to, I presume these people were dog walkers, you see, because they're out in the morning, and people normally walk the dog before going to work, so I thought they were dog walkers. And as I'm walking around, there's more of these signs, there are more of these people. And these people, they're talking about, oh, get in touch with, Jeffrey and David. They're the other group across the way there. I'll get in touch with them. We'll organise this. We'll put all these signs in a specific hall, and something's just passed. It's like a shadow about waist height. Just passed. There's a door just there. Just passed along the hall towards my main door. Sort of a shadow. Sort of a fist-sized thing just passed. But anyway, and I got to, and they're organised putting all the signs in this, like a communal place, so whoever they were for could go and view them at their leisure. So they could be known to, so they're all there, so no message could be missed. But these dog walkers, they seem to know the area and they go out quite a lot to walk their dogs. But it was once I was awake and thinking back to the dream. It was a bit of a very vivid dream. And I was thinking back to it, and I don't remember any of the dog walkers having any dogs, which was the weird thing. And it started making me think, it's like, why would they be out in the woods? They seem prepared to be out in the country, the countryside, the woods. They seem to be prepared to be out in there a lot of the time. And it made me think that they could be the folk from under the mound that I thought had perhaps gone away because they were unimpressed by the altar. And it's and it's so I was puzzling about that. And I thought I think it must be sort of natural woodland entities, and I keep meaning to go out and sort of perhaps find a certain spot in the countryside to. I think I found a sort of like a compromise for now, but strangely near the cathedral. It's always a bit of a strange mix, a cathedral and the folk from under the mound. Yeah, it's not exactly, but still, it seems to be a decent sort of thing. There's a few trees, and I think there's something about the trees there. Something a bit blank about them, but still seems to be some sort of sentience associated to them. And I have been sort of thinking more about animism in general, that there is some sort of life force, at least some sort of basic spirit or sentience to all or most living things, or most things, more specifically living things like trees. So there's still a park I want to go to and spend more time on. But yeah, and I don't know, it's just, I feel nervous about it. But yeah, in the meantime, I'd sort of tried to, because I've got several rune sets, I've started learning the Northumbrian Southwark, which is sort of an extension of the Anglo-Saxon Southwark. And then I'm going to go on to the Anglo-Saxon Southwark afterwards, so I know the Northumbrian and then the Anglo-Saxon. I want to finish. I started learning the Oghams a while ago, and I need to refresh a course and finish doing that. But the Northumbrians have been interesting. There's something very natural about them, very earthy. As if it is, I think I described to a friend that it was like talking to a tree. You could actually sort of get some sort of you could actually get some sort of message from them, and it was sort of like, it was like, it was a lot like being able to talk to a tree in a more literal sense. I know it's a daft saying it, I know, but it did sort of feel almost as if, and I know it's daft meaning it in a literal sense, but it sort of did feel like if it was literally the case. And it just feels very sort of earthy and connected, and I think it could be quite very refreshing, figuratively and literally grounding, because they're actual stones. The ones that are found, strangely enough, underneath an old fay tree that I can't fully access anymore, which is a shame. The city council, in their infinite wisdom, decided to rearrange things, and for the better. They wanted to put flood defences in, because the city I live in has a river running down one side of it. So so it's sort of, the rearranged the area I got the stones from. I'd sort of offer making rune sets for other people, but I can't get the stones now, and it took ages to get them in the first place anyway. It's sort of like, I think it took about 2.5 months to get enough suitably sized and shaped stones for, well, actually 3 separate sets, but still, it's sort of still matching them all up to try and get a set. It's probably would still have been about the same sort of length of time, but it took too long anyway. But I'm generally feeling a bit, pardon me, better than I did, say, 6 months ago. There's a shout out to sort of someone in the comments, and I feel a bit guilty that I've not sort of commented back on them, but I'm not sure if they want to be named or anything, because I've not run it past them, but their comments were really appreciated. They've suggested some things, and I think they suggested perhaps joining the OBOD, or something similar, the Order of Druids. Druidism is something I'm very, very interested in. I've even thought about doing stuff. I'm interested in Ogham for a start, but and a lot of the folk tales I'm interested in, and I've even thought about doing like readings of folk tales or whatever. Particularly the Welsh ones I like, but I can't properly pronounce Welsh. So it's either sort of acknowledge and put out as a warning that I'm not going to say Welsh words properly, or I don't bother doing them at all, or I could just plain do a critique on each rather than an actual reading. I'm not too sure, but yeah, beyond that, I'm not too sure about joining organisations. I keep being a bit wayward with what I get into. I seem to get very, 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 very interested in a project, and then the interest wanes after 6 months. So I'll have a very intense research period. And one thing that the reason I'm saying this is because if I join an organisation, I fear that after 6 months of doing a very intense, being very intense, very sort of like being very into it and a very, staunch member of that organisation, that I might not lose motivation with them, that I might sort of lose interest in them. So it's always a bit difficult to know whether joining an organisation or not would be a good idea. But I keep meaning to have a look if they do. I keep wanting to describe it as like a journeyman level of things. So it's like a beginner level, like a journeyman. I know it's a very old term, and I think it's associated with other organisations, but it's almost like someone who's near the sort of like a beginner intermediary level, and just staying at that sort of, just keeping your thumbs in, keeping your thumb in that pie, but not necessarily committing to it wholeheartedly. So sometimes I get very excited and I go, I'm going to commit, and still it's like, however long, months later, I go, I wish I hadn't committed now. Interest is waning. So it's a bit difficult. But I have another good thing is there's actually a group of Derby pagans that meet up. I live in Derby. And they've started their meetings up again. They meet once a month. They don't actually know I've got this channel, but one thing I've wondered about, it's a very reassuring group. I've not felt quite that accepted in quite a long time, even though we've only started meeting up again. Probably had 4 meetings since the lifting of lockdown, and I've been a couple of times before the first lockdown, but I'm still friends with people on Facebook. But also in the meantime, since the previous video about 6 months ago, I've looked into Discordianism a bit more, and that's been interesting me quite a bit. We're talking about it being sort of looking into the absurdity of things, how I read the Principia Discordia, which is a holy book that looks like it's been scribbled and put together by a 5-year-old. And there's one of the guys that helped found it was Robert Anton Wilson, and there's a picture of him that seems to sum up Discordianism very well. Part of this is a sort of a trigger warning, but Robert Anton Wilson did the Illuminatus trilogy. It's got an exclamation point on the end, so you've got to shout it as loud as you dare. It's a bit like Bogey, but Illuminatus. I think in one of my book videos I showed my copy off, and I've got a few of his books. I think in one of the most recent book, I've got quantum psychology of his, and I got another one of his books more recently. But Discordianism, there's a photo of Robert Anton Wilson that seems to sum up Discordianism very well. It's him with a goggly eye on a pyramid, that being a symbol of, well, the eye on the pyramid being a symbol for, but it's a goggly eye, meaning everything's a bit of a joke, and it's resting on Mr. Wilson's. I've just had the temptation to shout, Mr. Wilson. It's propped on his middle finger. So there's a there's a big screw U hidden within the eye on the triangle, which is part of a joke anyway, involving someone who finds absurdism and quantum theory very, very interesting. So it's partly, I only found that more recently, that photo, but I've been reading up on it, and it's very interesting because it does sort of acknowledge that a lot of things are very, very absurd. It's even if you take some of the major myths, that if you were to suggest to someone who does not know religion from a chair and explain that the world was created by a person that no one can see who lives far, far away in 7 days, and he did it in stages, or there was primordial lava and a giant living there who was dismembered, and their hair became forests and their teeth mountains, and thus the world was made. They'd probably call you a lunatic if you started, and and there's some quite interesting stuff about a lot of perception and stuff like that, which is based on a person's experience of a world can lead them to believe some very wildly different things from the next given person, and both of those people would be utterly correct about things, and that fascinates me. That it's again, to paraphrase the saying, it's that everything is true, then everything would be permissible. This is something I don't necessarily like saying belief. It's something I really like, that has really caught on with me. Yeah. And it's just sort of turned things on a slight angle, and I sort of want to use the term, but because I think in the meantime, since the last video, I started looking into Dadaism, Surrealism and jazz since World War One, and that sort of surreal things seem to come about after traumatic worldwide events like World War One. You had Surrealism and Dadaism and jazz come about, and then there was, after World War Two, a new sort of interest in Surrealism and jazz came out again. And there's wanting to describe it almost as I'm not leading up to it. Sorry. We're bypassing it through some surreal comedy. There's Spike Milligan, who came out of World War Two, and he started out as a jazz musician, and he's quite famous for his surreal comedy. And it's just the way he thinks. I know he always said he was ill, but I keep wanting to describe it as Irish thinking, and it's not necessarily a serious thing. I'm sure a different term will come up, but it's like the Irish bellhop, hotel bellhop, who picked up a guest's luggage to show them to the room and said, "Follow me, I'm right behind you." It's like, how can I follow you if you are behind me? It makes sense if you study quantum theory and chaos theory. I'm sure it would. But it's other things like realising there is no real thing as normal. It's like if someone tries to tell you what normal actually is, I think you can kick them in the crotch for talking nonsense, you know. And it's it's like the Irishman that was also asked, "Do you believe in God?" And he replied, "No, I don't believe in God, and I don't think he believes in me either." And it's and it's the whole bringing the puka into it. It's a fascinating creature, and I want to look into that a bit more. But the short of it is, I think I'm beginning to dig myself and find things to sort of engage with all of this. It's sort of a bit of a realisation that things are a bit absurd because we've just been through a bit of a major global a troublesome period across the globe. So things are generally going all right. And circling back, I've just realised I've not made back to the Fae. I mentioned the dream. I had a friend do a tarot reading and a psychic reading, and the Fae kept popping up and saying that they'd been trying to get my attention quite a lot, and he's been trying very hard. So it's sort of the realisation that they perhaps had never actually gone. The question being, it's sort of, why did I stop feeling their presence? Why did their presence seem to wane? Why did that feeling go? So because it had sort of felt like I'd been left behind in a sense. But quite a while. This ties in. I think they managed to get in touch with a being, a guide of mine, that one of the first beings I ever met, if in meditation, quite a while ago. We're probably talking about 4 years ago. And this guide is basically some sort of like fae. They are an elf of sorts. I'm not going to give the name, but I think the friend that I was speaking to had actually found their name, and because when I mentioned it to her, my friend, the name rang a bell, and they might have been speaking to this guide who seems to have been with me since I started meditating. And it's a couple of other bits. I think one thing, and I remember a reading I had still a couple of years ago, perhaps a year and a half ago, that still in the back of my mind and puzzles me a little bit. There was a being. I had a new guide from another friend. This is a reading from another friend. A new guide had come, and they wanted to ask me if me and them could be sort of lovers. I do trust this second reader, but I was wondering and there was the suggestion that this guide again was fae, but could possibly be a Selkie. There was water-based sort of stuff, so there's also like sylph, I think, But it was. They could tell that there's all this stuff. Yeah, part of the problems I've been having was some of the, yeah, was that part of the problems I'd been having, as I mentioned in the last video, was that after quite a serious relationship, we'd shared quite a lot. I'd shared my spiritual life with her as well, and when she went, I think some of my spiritual life went as well, and all in all, it was very, very heartbreaking. And I think I'm still having a bit of trouble. I'm still very, very nervous about fully jumping into a few areas. Researching stuff is, all brilliant, but sometimes the practice is very, very daunting. Still, so it's like with meditation. I would really like to get back into meditation again, and because that was wonderful. There were wonders. It was awesome in a way that, pardon me, is it was awesome in a way that is nearer the actual definition of the word, where it's you just sort of stunned into sort of awe. You just wow. So I used to have those moments, and I used to meditate lots and lots. And in a sense, I think I was getting quite overwhelmed by all this, almost bombarded by all this stuff from. I think it was the astral plane. I think that's the best way of describing it. I'm quite sure it is. If you've got any suggestions about this please feel free to get in touch in the comments. But it was just all very awe-inspiring, and meditating became more and more difficult, and using meditation to get over a few things got more and more difficult, and I think I'm technically classed as actually being afraid to do it. And I've sort of tried to do it again, to actually sort of go into a more of a trance-like state again, where I can see this stuff. And it worries me. I'm worried about it. It sort of, sometimes it does feel like there is something wrong with me. But I think it's just a need to perhaps better put the past to one side. But I think with the relationship, I realise that's not the problem. It's getting into things again. It's fully sort of like separating that and getting into things. And I realise the advantage of joining something along the lines of OBOD. I mentioned it earlier. That's the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. Yeah, they would be able to help. So it's always quite difficult to know quite what would feel comfortable doing. But and I realise I'm sort of rambling and getting away from a point. But it's all because of that. I think the fairies it's the dog walkers without any dogs. I think were fairies saying we're still here. And there was the other reading, the first reading from a friend, and she said the fae are trying to get my notice. And there's the elven lady from one of the first meditations I ever did, who still seems to be present. from the second reading a year or two ago who might be a Selkie. But I'm not too sure on that. It'd be nice to sort of like, if we felt more comfortable doing. I don't even really know why I'm afraid to do it, really. But I just am. There's still sort of like a hurdle, some sort of barricade in the way that I need to somehow smash through. I've done meditating in a sort of a more minor sense to sort of help calm down and things and sort of feel more in tune and relaxed and at one with things, but not to go more into a sort of more of a trance. So that's. But it'd be nice to find out, because I think I've felt the presence of this possible Selkie a few times. It's normally when I'm going to bed they've been by my side and stuff. But yeah. Yes. But it's I think that's something I need. That's sort of a fear I think I could probably do with help getting over. Yeah. But all in all, generally things seem to be all right. Yeah, things generally seem to be more comfortable, and I think if once I've managed to get, it's like learning the Northumbrian Southwark. Once I completing doing that, and I'm comfortable with that, and with a few other things and stuff, and it's steadily gonna build up to me perhaps getting into it. But yeah, that meditation seemed to be a very, very big part of stuff that I can't get back in. I can only get into in a more peripheral sort of kind of way. I've sort of gone into a bit of a trance on rare occasions, but yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it's I've also had I keep having on occasion I have periods where I have dreams, and most of the time they don't seem to make much sense. Some of them seem. I thought there was a light outside turning on. You can just see this is my window just here. But yeah, it's some dreams hold, some give dreams some credit. Some of them can be some of them are sort of very mundane. It's sort of, you dream like that you're going to go and buy bread in the shop or something. And then it's all very hazy, but sometimes it's very, very vivid. And I do wonder if it's more something along the lines of I'm experiencing myself, an alternate life, or experiencing another life in an alternate dimension. So I do wonder. Most of them seem to be based around me going to comfortable pubs, which is a bit strange. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, there seem to be a few pubs, and a few of them seem to change hands in the dream and stuff, and none of them exist in real life. Yeah, just being a bit curious about that. I think it's just sort of like almost like a subconscious relaxing or something, a little bit, and it's sort of cozying up in a corner, perhaps on occasion with a friend, and having a relaxing drink. Well, yeah, well, anyway, that's for another time. People are welcome to comment below, and it will generally, if you'd like to comment and ask questions and talk amongst yourself in the comments session. But yeah, please feel welcome. I'd appreciate some tips with trying to. Yeah, I know how to meditate. It's just getting over the fear of it, and I don't necessarily understand why I'm still afraid. I don't necessarily understand that fear properly. So, yeah. But anyway, if you have any suggestions about stuff, yeah, please leave a comment. Try and be friendly. And if you want to use the comment section as a bit of a sort of a forum, if there are other people having related difficulties, yeah, please ask questions. Please talk amongst yourselves about those topics, and I'll try and keep in touch with comments as best as I can as well. So, yes, I think that's everything I've basically got to say. Covering about 6 months in just over 40 minutes. I might go into more depth about a few things. If people have sort of questions about certain things, I might make another video going into more detail or something. But I think that's basically it for now. I'm going to say goodbye. Bye-bye. I hope you're all well. If not, I hope you get better. Bye-bye, everyone.